I want you to imagine just for a second that you are standing on a brightly lit stage. Like the spotlight is completely blinding.
Oh, I can already feel the anxiety kicking in just thinking about it.
Right. But even through all that glare, you can physically feel hundreds of eyes just totally fixed right on you. And your job is to play a piano sonata perfectly.
No pressure or anything.
Totally. And it's a piece you've practiced for months, just bleeding over the keys. But right in the middle of this really complex run, you miss a chord.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a really loud, just dissonant crash rings out in the room. And instead of silence from the crowd, you hear the audience start to whisper.
You know, that whispering, it actually hits a completely different part of the human brain than the mistake itself.
Really? How so?
Well, I mean, the mechanical error is just, a slip of a finger. But the whispering, that triggers this deep evolutionary alarm bell.
Like a survival thing.
Exactly. You literally can't unhear it. It just echoes in your own head long after you walk off that stage. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. The mistake is just a glitch in execution, but those whispers, they feel like this massive indictment of who you are as a person.
It's deeply personal, yeah.
Well, that's exactly why we are jumping into today's deep dive. Welcome, everyone, because today we're exploring a source that gets right at the absolute heart of that feeling.
The fear of public failure.
Yes, and more importantly, how you actually survive it when everyone is watching you. We are looking at some really incredible excerpts from an inspirational story called The Silent Strength of Focus.
Which is from a great collection called My Better Path.
Right. And our mission today, it isn't just to, recount a nice little story. We are here to extract the concrete, actionable steps that you can use right now.
To take the focus method developed by the main character, a boy named Jody, and apply it to your own life.
Exactly. Because we want to help you cut through the absolute noise and pressure of modern daily life.
And the really fascinating thing here is that the mechanics of how the human brain processes focus or distraction, they haven't changed over the centuries.
Even though our distractions are totally different now.
Right. I mean, the nature of the distractions has obviously shifted from, say, a busy village square to a smartphone screen, but the brain responds the exact same way.
So to really understand how to hack our own focus, we have to look at what happens when our internal narrative gets basically hijacked by an audience.
And the text gives us this perfect, just brutal baseline with Jyoti.
It really does. So the story places us in this peaceful rural village, and it introduces Jyoti as this incredibly sharp, sincere, and just hardworking young boy.
But his reality is pretty stark, right?
Very. I mean, he lives with his mother in a small mud house, and they are struggling just to survive. This isn't, your casual wake up and catch the bus to school kind of life.
No, not at all. The routine described in the source is grueling. I mean, he wakes up well before the sun, walks out to the fields, plows the soil, and waters crops.
Until he's just completely covered in sweat.
Exactly. It's this really intense physical labor just to maintain a basic level of survival. And only after all of that is done does he actually wash up and sit down to study.
Which means he has almost zero time or energy left for his schoolwork.
Right, so he's studying late at night, just sitting there under the dim light of this tiny little lamp.
And despite all those odds, everyone in his village expects him to perform at this incredibly high academic level.
They all believe Jyoti is going to top his 12th grade exams.
Yeah, the whole community is watching him. The pressure is just immense. I mean, it reminds me of the pressure of those transparent performance metrics in a modern office,
Like when everyone's sales numbers are up on a screen.
Exactly, where everyone's project statuses are just completely visible on a dashboard for the whole floor to see. Everyone expects you to carry the team. And then, well, the inciting incident happens.
The exam results come out.
And he fails.
Though the text specifically notes he didn't fail everything. It was just one single subject.
Which, I mean, to an overachiever is completely catastrophic.
Oh yeah, it feels like the end of the world.
The text actually says it felt as if the entire world had collapsed around him. But the thing that really struck me in the source material is that the academic failure wasn't the actual breaking point.
Right, the wound didn't come from the test score itself.
It came from the villagers. Suddenly, on his daily, quiet walk to the fields, the exact same people who expected him to be a genius are whispering about him.
They're laughing.
Yeah, they are throwing these cruel words at him as he walks by.
The source quotes them saying, look, the smart boy who failed. He can't even pass one subject. All his confidence is useless.
That is so harsh.
It is. The text describes these words as being like thorns. Jody stays completely silent on the outside, but internally his heart is just breaking.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I don't really get why the failure itself didn't crush him as much as the whispering did.
What do you mean?
Well, if he failed, he failed, right? It's a quantifiable setback. You take the test again.
Yeah.
Why is the social aspect the thing that actually breaks his spirit?
I see.
Because I see this all the time today. You make a mistake, maybe a really bad presentation or a typo in a massive company-wide email or a failed product launch, and the error itself is usually entirely fixable.
You just issue a correction.
Exactly. But the idea that your colleagues are slacking each other about it behind your back, or that your peers are judging you on LinkedIn, that is what causes the sleepless nights.
It's so true. It really comes down to evolutionary biology.
Okay, walk me through that.
So we are deeply, deeply social creatures, right? We've been wired for thousands of years to understand that our literal survival depends on our standing within the tribe.
Oh, because if the tribe kicks you out, you're in trouble.
Right. In our ancestral past, if the village turned against you and exiled you, you literally died. You just couldn't survive alone in the wild.
So our brains still think that way.
Exactly. The brain's amygdala, which is basically the threat detection center, it does not differentiate between a physical predator, like a tiger, and social rejection.
Wow, so a bad tweet feels like a tiger attack to the brain.
Yes. When Jody fails that one subject, the village's reaction triggers a massive physiological threat response.
He's literally in fight or flight mode.
Yeah, he is listening to the villagers more than his own internal logic, because his brain is basically screaming that this social rejection is a literal life or death scenario.
That is wild, but it makes so much sense. The threat response just completely takes over, and he loses his internal anchor.
He's defenseless.
Totally defenseless when the village decides to stop clapping and start laughing instead. And he internalizes their judgment so deeply that their words become his own inner monologue.
Which is an agonizing way to live.
It is. And this daily public judgment becomes so bad that it forces Jyoti to seek out a mentor. He goes to his teacher, a man named Teacher Vishnu.
And the text describes Vishnu as this old man with a really calm voice and kind eyes.
Jyoti stands before him and just admits complete defeat. He says, "Teacher, when I walk to the fields, people mock me, they laugh at me, I cannot tolerate it anymore."
He's basically asking for a way to make the pain stop.
Right. And, most people in a mentoring position would probably offer comforting words, maybe a pep talk about self-belief or, I don't know, strategies for ignoring the bullies.
But Teacher Vishnu totally bypasses all of that.
He really does. He gives Jyoti a highly specific, very physical assignment.
Yeah. He tells the boy that tomorrow morning he must take a large pot, fill it completely to the brim with fresh milk, and walk that exact same path to the fields.
The very path lined with the exact people mocking him.
Exactly. And he gives him one absolute rule. He must not let a single drop of that milk fall.
See, I have to push back on this logic.
Why is that?
Because you have a kid who is already completely crumbling under the weight of social anxiety. His threat detection center is constantly redlining, as you just explained.
Right.
And the mentor's grand solution is to give him a fragile, highly visible, incredibly nerve-wracking task to perform right in front of his bullies.
It sounds a bit counterintuitive, I know.
It feels counterproductive. Honestly, it feels a little cruel. It's like asking someone who is having an active panic attack about public speaking to carry a full, brimming cup of scalding hot coffee across a crowded, open-plan office.
While their coworkers shout criticisms at them.
Yes. It sounds like a guaranteed recipe for a total psychological breakdown.
Well, I mean, it definitely looks like a cruel test of willpower on the surface. But we have to look at the underlying mechanics of what Teacher Vishnu is actually doing here.
Okay, what is he doing?
He understands that when a person is trapped in a hyper-fixated cycle of anxiety, telling them to just ignore it is neurologically impossible.
Because the brain is too busy worrying about the titer.
Exactly. The conscious mind just cannot overpower a hijacked amygdala. Teacher Vishnu isn't actually trying to stress test Jyoti at all. He is utilizing cognitive load theory.
Cognitive load theory, what is that?
So the human brain has a finite amount of working memory, right? Just a limited amount of processing power available at any given second.
Like a computer's RAM.
Perfect analogy. By giving Jyoti a task that requires 100% of his physical and mental bandwidth, Teacher Vishnu is mechanically forcing a cognitive bottleneck.
Oh, wait, so the brain literally does not have the processing power left over to even render the social anxiety.
That is exactly the mechanism. He is mechanically forcing a shift in Jyoti's perspective by giving his brain a task so incredibly demanding that it just starves the anxiety of the cognitive resources it needs to even exist.
Wow, that is brilliant. So Jody accepts this strange challenge, and the next morning he begins this infamous milk pot walk.
And through this sheer mechanical override, he stumbles into the exact physical and mental state required to block out negativity.
The source text actually gives us some incredible sensory details of this walk. The sun is rising, birds are singing, the village is waking up.
And Jody fills this big pot with fresh milk right to the very top.
The text really emphasizes that the pot is full, heavy, and still. He holds it so carefully with both hands and steps outside.
He isn't striding confidently either. He takes really slow steps. The pot feels shaky in his hands.
He knows one tiny mistake, one stumble, and the milk spills.
And just like every other day, the villagers are standing on the sides of the path. They are whispering, they're laughing, they're judging.
But the internal shift happens almost immediately. The text says Jyoti couldn't hear anything. His eyes were entirely fixed on the pot.
His hands were steady. His breath was slow and careful.
All he saw was the milk. There is this beautiful line in the text that says, all he heard was his own heartbeat.
It's so powerful.
It is. That is a profound physical reaction to a mental task.
It really is the physiological description of absolute presence. Let's actually look at what is happening under the hood there.
Oh, yeah, let's break that down.
The text specifically mentions his breath was slow and careful. Now, when you are in a state of social panic, your breathing naturally becomes shallow and rapid, right?
Right, which signals to the brain that you are in danger.
Exactly. But by forcing himself to take slow, careful breaths to steady the heavy pot, Jody is manually engaging his diaphragm.
Oh, interesting.
And this stimulates the vagus nerve, which runs all the way from the brainstem down to the abdomen. The vagus nerve basically acts as a physical brake pedal on the amygdala.
So it forces you to calm down.
Yes. When it is stimulated by slow breathing, it releases acetylcholine, which physically lowers the heart rate and forces the nervous system into a parasympathetic or resting state.
So he is literally hacking his own nervous system.
He really is.
He forces the calm physically, which clears the bandwidth mentally. He enters the state where the external world physically recedes.
The text says the world around him became a blur. Voices faded.
Faces disappeared. Even the loudest laugh just sounded like a faraway echo to him. And he walks the entire gauntlet, reaches the fields, and not a single drop has fallen.
And think about it, the environment didn't change at all. The hostile villagers were still there, still shouting.
But his perception of them was entirely neutralized by that cognitive bottleneck he created.
Exactly.
Reading this, the mental image I keep getting is active noise cancellation in headphones.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, if you put on really high-end headphones on an airplane, they don't actually put a physical wall between you and the jet engine.
Right, you're still sitting right next to it.
Right. The headphones literally listen to the chaotic noise of the engine, and they generate a highly specific counter frequency. They play a sound that perfectly matches and neutralizes the chaos.
So they cancel each other out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jyoti isn't building a wall between himself and the villagers. His intense focus on the milk pot is generating a counter frequency that simply cancels out the noise of their judgment.
That is such an excellent way to conceptualize it.
Yeah.
And, the source material offers another angle on this exact same phenomenon, using the analogy of a camera lens.
Oh, right. The depth of field thing.
Yeah. When a photographer takes a portrait, they adjust the depth of field so that the subject in the foreground is incredibly sharp and crisp.
And as a mechanical result of focusing the lens on that single subject, the background naturally becomes a blur.
Exactly. The photographer doesn't have to try to erase a background or fight it. The background simply loses all its definition because the lens literally cannot focus on two different depths simultaneously.
Wow. So the lesson from Teacher Vishnu was actually never about the milk at all.
No, not at all.
The milk was merely a tool to manipulate the lens. When your mind is deeply, fundamentally focused on a singular purpose, the opinions and words of others don't just become easier to ignore, they literally lose their power to penetrate your consciousness.
You don't fight the noise.
You just focus so intensely on the goal that the noise disappears on its own.
Right. And Jody goes back to his teacher and says, I was so focused on the pot that I did not hear anything. And the teacher just smiles and says, that is exactly my lesson for you.
It's brilliant.
It really highlights that if your attention is scattered outward, constantly scanning the environment to monitor everyone's opinion of you, your cognitive load is fractured.
You become highly vulnerable to every little shift in the social weather.
Exactly. But when your attention is gathered inward and concentrated on a single, tangible purpose, you become grounded.
And the text notes that from that day on, Jody felt this completely new calmness and strength. He just stopped worrying.
He went back to his studies, prepared for his exams, and worked in the fields with deep peace.
Jody really uncovered a replicable psychological method here, and I think this is where we need to transition from a village in the past to, well, your life right now.
Because it's so applicable.
Extremely applicable. The text lays out how you can take this exact method and apply it to the modern world. Because, let's be honest, our modern environment, our social media feeds, open plan offices, constant phone notifications, it is essentially one giant village path lined with people shouting at us.
It really is a gauntlet of digital and social judgments, so we need to operationalize Jody's walk for the listener.
Yes. The text provides a pretty clear framework for turning this theory into practice when you are under pressure.
So what's the first step?
Step 1, according to the text, is that you have to identify your milk pot. You have to know exactly what your immediate goal or dream is. You literally cannot focus if you don't actually have a physical or mental pot in your hands to look at.
That makes total sense because abstract anxiety requires a concrete anchor.
Right.
If you are feeling overwhelmed by, say, a vague sense of failure or imposter syndrome or general workplace stress, you can't just tell yourself to be confident.
Because vague instructions don't trigger the cognitive bottleneck.
Exactly. You have to pick one specific, highly tangible task to execute. The milk pot worked because it was immediate, it was physical, and it demanded continuous micro-adjustments from Jody.
Okay, so step 2 is about controlling your physical state. Before Jody walked, he took a deep breath. He steadied his hands.
Yes.
The text explicitly tells the reader, take a deep breath. Hold your milk pot, your goal, your dream, with steady hands.
And this is where you pull that vagus nerve brake pedal we talked about.
Yeah.
You have to slow down your immediate physical reactions to stress before your mind can actually find focus.
Because the conscious mind follows the body's lead, right?
Precisely. If your heart is racing and your breathing is shallow, your brain assumes it needs to be on high alert for social threats. Deep breathing signals safety, which actually allows the prefrontal cortex to come back online and direct your attention.
Okay, and step 3. Embrace the blur. When you are overwhelmed by doubt, pressure, or the words of other people, you have to actively choose to let the background lose its definition.
You have to recognize the truth of what Jyoti discovered.
Yeah, that an intensely focused mind becomes, as the text explicitly says, untouchable.
I love that word. And untouchable in this context, it doesn't mean arrogant or oblivious.
Right, it's not about ignoring people out of spite.
No, it means you are cognitively insulated. You have created this boundary of pure attention that external negativity simply doesn't have the processing power to breach.
Okay, let's put you, the listener, in a modern scenario to really cement this. Imagine you are sitting at your desk on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, setting the scene.
You just sent a major project report to your entire department, and you hit send and immediately realize you made a massive, embarrassing error in the data.
Oh, that stomach drop feeling.
Exactly. Your inbox starts flooding with emails from people pointing it out. Your Slack is pinging constantly. The imposter syndrome is just screaming in your ear that you are going to be fired, that everyone thinks you're completely incompetent.
The modern village is mocking you.
Yes, and your threat detection center is just completely overwhelmed.
The immediate instinct in that moment is highly reactive. You want to frantically reply to every single email, defend yourself, or just apologize profusely in every Slack channel.
You're trying to manage the village's perception of you.
Exactly, which is exhausting and usually backfires.
So you essentially drop the pot and start yelling at the villagers. But using Jyoti's method, you stop. You pick one milk pot task. Just one.
What would that be in this scenario?
Maybe the task is opening a fresh document and writing out the 3 specific steps needed to correct the data error.
That's it. It's your milk pot.
Yes. You take a physical, deep breath to engage that vagus nerve. You place your hand steadily on the keyboard, and you fix your eyes solely on typing that one paragraph.
You give yourself permission to let the unread emails, the Slack pings, and the lingering sting of that embarrassment just become a blur.
Right. You don't try to solve the social fallout right then. You just let the digital noise lose its sharp edges while you focus entirely on the execution of the immediate fix.
Because true resilience isn't actually about silencing your critics or magically making the anxiety disappear.
You rarely have the power to control external opinions anyway.
True resilience is about changing your own cognitive tuning. It is the active application of selective attention.
Which takes practice.
It does. Understanding that you have the biological capacity to blur out the background is liberating, but actually practicing it, holding that metaphorical pot of milk when the pressure is spiking, that is the actual work.
You know, the aftermath of Jody's walk is honestly the most revealing part of the source material for me. He went back to preparing for his exams. He slowly got his confidence back. His fear disappeared. But the text delivers this critical line. The village didn't change, but Joe Yoti did.
The villagers were still standing by the path every single day. They still possessed all their opinions and all their judgments.
But their words were just noise hitting a frequency they couldn't penetrate anymore. Joe Yoti had changed his internal landscape, so the external landscape couldn't hurt him.
It's incredible.
When you hold your goal steady, the negativity doesn't cease to exist. It simply fades from your awareness. Focus makes the noise disappear.
It really functions as the ultimate psychological shield.
Well, we have covered a vast amount of ground today, looking at evolutionary biology, the vagus nerve, cognitive bottlenecks, and a timeless story of a heavy milk pot.
It's been a journey.
It really has. But the core truth remains. When your mind becomes deeply focused on a singular purpose, the opinions of others physically lose their power over your nervous system. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the silent strength of focus. We hope you found your own milk pot today.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. The story explicitly notes that the village didn't change, but Jody did. If absolute focus makes you truly untouchable by starving distractions of your mental bandwidth, it raises a fascinating question about our daily reality. Does the noise around us ever actually go away, or do we just finally learn how to choose what we hear? Think back to that blinding stage and the whispering crowd we talked about at the start. Are they still whispering, or are you just finally listening to the music?